There's a new loser in town, right? Ever since the patch, I've kind of wondered at what point is there going to be a worse legend than Nye? And honestly, I think it's almost for certain we do have it, and it's just absolutely Magyar. I mean, what they did to Hammer, what's happened to Greatsword with the grounded kit now killing way later. Dude, this character blows. Magyar's one of those characters at this point where it's kind of the question of, okay, if you want to play Hammer, if you want to play Greatsword, why even bother playing Magyar? I mean, you have to be so dedicated to, I guess, the weapon combination itself, or just really like this weapon combination itself, to even give this character a try. Because the SIGs are not doing you any favor, right? The stats, I mean, the high defense is kind of cool, but aside from that, I mean, there is so little going for this legend. It is unbelievable. I actually did a test earlier, and on Brawlhaven, you're going to be killing at like 130, like past 130. I think it's like 140 once it's said and done if you hit a stomp stare. The SIGs, the earliest killing is the Hammer side SIG, of course, unless I guess you do hit the D SIG. But in practicality, you know, if we're looking at from on stage on the side, it's still gonna be like 130-ish, and that is horrible on a legend that has Hammer and above average strength, mind you. Like, I'm playing the 3 deck stance, which is strength stance, and that means instead of 5, I can have 6, and even then, dude, it's still so bad, because like half the point of playing this character is the fact that, yeah, you don't die, but also it's like, oh, I have Greatsword, but I also have Hammer as a kill option. And to me, it's just wild to see, like, I don't know, how much Greatsword has like fallen off in that regard, or just how much this character, I should say, has fallen off in that regard. It's not necessarily Greatsword's fault. I mean, yeah, the changes definitely hurt the character a lot, but also Hammer was absolutely obliterated. You know, they have buffed some of the SIGs on this character, but even then, I don't think that really makes up for the fact that this character, it's just not it right now. I mean, you look at Queen Nye. I think it's really important that we have this discussion. I think Spear and I think Hammer are kind of the equivalent of one another for these legends, right? They both are 4 speed, or at least on Queen Nye you can get up to 4 speed. Queen Nye is base 3. And, you know, I don't think most people are going to be going without the speed stance. I think speed stance on Nye is probably the most popular. So let's say, you know, they're both, at least to me, 4 speed legends. And then Spear, Hammer are the ones where even with like the low decks or whatever, you're still going to be able to hit combos and stuff, and that's all fine and dandy, and that's great. But then you look at the other weapons, you look at Greatsword, you look at Katars. The individual moves on Katars are just flat out better than the individual moves on Greatsword. I don't even think that's up for much debate. Maybe you could say with like the new Sair that the aerial kit of Greatsword could be like a little better, but I don't know, dude. I think even that is a bit of a stretch at this point. And then also, when you're looking at the Hammer and Spear, and just this plays into the SIGs, Queen Nye, you can do like D-Light End SIG. Now, to be fair, D-Light End SIG on Queen Nye isn't an end-all be-all, right? It's good, but there's still sometimes ways you can get out of it, and that's because if you dodge a certain way, you can avoid it completely, but I don't always buy into that. Also, is the fact that, just in general, look at Queen Nye 6, compare them to Magyar. Dude, Magyar is struggling in the signature department so bad, and they've given the character buffs. That's the worst of it. And even with these buffs, this character still has SIGs that are basically unusable. I mean, if you're using the SIGs on Magyar, you're probably trying to get a dunk with the D-SIG, which, admittedly, I mean, that one's pretty good, right? Especially on Hammer, you can set up into some good edge guards. But on Greatsword, man, I don't even know. Like, yeah, you have, like, the End SIG. End SIG can be cool. I mean, the D SIG and side SIG are all right, but it's just nothing in comparison to Queen Nye. And when we're looking at a head-to-head, which this is basically what this video is, because I think it is about time someone just straight up said Magyar is, I mean, it's kind of been known, but, you know, Magyar is garbage and the worst legend in the game. Yeah, it's about time. Because also Queen Nye, with all the signature power that she has, you can use that character in both 1s and 2s and get away with it. There's ways you can incorporate the signatures, and instead of doing like a sidelight into D-Light or sidelight into N-Light, you can just do a sidelight into like D-Sig, and that'll cover a bunch of dodge options, which is pretty good. And also, not to mention, the individual moves on both of the weapons are just better than both of the weapons on Magyar. I think this opens up a more concerning thing, though, is the fact that new characters, or some of the newer characters, just straight up don't see play, or they're down at the bottom of the barrel in terms of play rate. I mean, I think one in particular that's crazy is the fact that you have both Vector and Magyar sitting at first and third least played legends in the game. And they've both been around for a little bit now, and that's just really concerning. It's almost like, I don't know if BMG looks at the play rates of legends and stuff, and they see the, like, low play rates, and that discourages them from making new legends, but I mean, when they do these things to the legends, like, I think Magyar conceptually is so cool and such a good design. And then Vector, it's like, I don't know, dude. Vector's just, he's like a bootleg transformer. It's like, you guys remember GoBots? Yeah, it was like an old TV show. It was basically bootleg Transformers. That's what Vector is. That's honestly what I imagine Vector. And it's like, who wants to play the bootleg Transformer? Even if the character is good, because the character is actually very, very good. And then you have other issues like Magyar, where Magyar is honestly such like a cool legend. Like Phantom Souls, like a possessed piece of armor. Like the idea is there, the signature design is there, but then the actual application, like, it's all good on paper. And then it's like, bro, we see the stats. The stats are absolutely garbanzo, right? And then we see the actual, like, character in game and what the signatures are capable of, and it's so bad. And then on top of that, they nerf the living daylights out of the weapons that the character has. It's like, okay, well, now you're basically sabotaging yourself. Like, it's like Brawlhalla wants their legend to fail. And now, to be fair, I'm not saying Brawlhalla in the past has, like, purposely made certain legends really, really good. It sure has felt like that at some points, right? But at the same time, I think that design usually speaks for itself. And when the design just doesn't hold up, like, you gotta find ways to make the character actually good in practicality. And it seems like with Magyar, they haven't really bothered to find that sweet spot. Maybe part of the issue is also the fact that Magyar is in possession of greatsword, a weapon that I don't think BMG knew what they were doing with completely, or what was going to happen with it being released. Because that weapon is its own mess, clearly. Like, if you didn't know, and I'm sure most of you know at this point, that the grounded kit for the weapon is not botched, but there's certain, like, leads you can do. Like, before you could do everything into a sidelight finisher, and that would kill monumentally earlier than a endlight finisher, and now that's just, like, not a thing because of the changes they did. And the question is, like, do they even know that they did that? Now, I would have a feeling that they probably did know that, because they were seeing it as a trade-off as to also buffing Sair and recovery, which, you know, okay, I mean, in the end, is greatsword a better weapon? I would lean towards yes, but maybe that's just because I'm not some greatsword aficionado, right? Like, I have a little bit of a greatsword, but it is nothing compared to, like, you know, Hardy or like Jetbean or Pavelski. All these people you say are actually like mains of the weapon, or probably know what they're doing with the weapon. It's just, I don't know, dude. It's just disappointing because Magyar is a really cool legend, and it just feels like whenever a legend has greatsword in their hands at this point, it's kind of just being thrown away. And I hope that's resolved in the future. I hope they figure something out, but part of me really doesn't know if Brawlhalla is going to be able to find a way to make it to where, I don't know, the greatsword legends are more appealing, or greatsword itself isn't some absolute disaster of a weapon, right? Before it was like, why should I play this? Like, people just don't know the matchup. That's where it comes into play. But then at the same time, if it's buffed too much, we've already seen what can happen. And I don't think it'll ever be back there. But dude, if it got back there, that would be super scary. And we're always seeing recycled changes. So maybe it's only a matter of time till greatsword becomes like top 2 in the game again. But I don't know. I digress. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I'm actually curious, what do you think is the worst legend in the game? Because I don't think there's anyone close to Magyar in particular right now. Queen Nai, I mean, Queen Nai is, you know, bottom of the barrel, but I wouldn't say that Queen Nai is that god-awful. And in the end, is any legend in the game that bad? Magyar might be, but I don't know. Hope you guys enjoyed, though. See you in the next one. Peace, guys.